Hey, what's up, guys? So today I want to talk about why I left the United States for Colombia and why I really don't want to go back. Um, First and foremost, my name is Christian. I'm 31 years old. At the moment, I'm not currently in Colombia. I am living in Lima, in Peru. But The first time that I ever left the United States, I was 30 years old. It was in 2024 in August. And before that, I had never really traveled. I had never really left the United States. Like, yes, I'd been to other states, but I had never left the United States. And since I was 18 years old, I had always had this idea that, I would love to live in another country and I would love to learn another culture. Part of that is because, my dad's side of the family is Spanish. They're from Spain. And so, I started thinking, where would I like to travel? And I was watching YouTube videos, and I stumbled across a video. Actually, I think it was Kurt Cass, his video of him in Colombia, and I just thought, wow, like the people are so friendly. Like everything looks different than the way that I had thought it was. When you hear about traveling to third world countries, you think that like it's extremely dangerous. You think that you're going to get killed and robbed for your organs, crazy things like that. And you hear about the stories, of course, of guys going there, passport bros going there for prostitutes and the things that happen to them. But after watching so many videos, I started to realize Colombia is so much more than the reputation that it has, about the prostitutes, the drugs, obviously everybody knows about Pablo Escobar. These are just some of the things that would come to mind when you would first think about, going to Colombia. And so after watching so many videos, I realized, it didn't look near as dangerous as I thought it was. Everybody seemed pretty friendly and welcoming. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful on top of that. And it was also very close to where I was living at the time. I was living in Florida. I'm actually born and raised in Florida. And the more that I, fantasized about this idea, I realized that I probably shouldn't go alone. I really didn't care whether or not anybody was going to go with me. So I pitched the idea to my friends, and everybody was like, "Oh no, you're crazy. Like that's way too dangerous. Like maybe we would go somewhere else, like, like Europe." But nobody was willing really to go to, a third world country. And I just started to think to myself, like, if no one's gonna go with me, I will go by myself. And I think like the pressure of me threatening to go alone, eventually I got one of my friends to agree, he would go with me. And, so we just planned it out. We planned it in a couple months. We would take a week off from work. We would meet up in the airport. So our connecting flight was in Panama, and it's a very short flight from Florida for me, because Colombia is very close to Florida. It's only like 3 hours away, 2.5. And so he was actually flying from New York, and this was his first time leaving the country as well. And so we booked our flights, and we prepared. And as the day started to get closer, I started to feel kind of nervous that, this is really happening. Like I'm really going to go to, another country, a developing country at that. And of course, I read all the horror stories that I could. I felt like that I needed to get that out of my system. And I also needed to understand, like, how does that happen? How do people get robbed? How do people get, themselves in these situations where they, end up getting all their shit taken? And overwhelmingly, it just seemed really obvious. It seemed that, you know, if you go there chasing prostitution, chasing drugs, chasing things that you know you shouldn't, if you get approached by women, you know, that are together, or even you get approached by an 8 or a 9 and they're trying to hang out with you and, you know, go back to your crib or take you back to theirs like immediately, or they want to go leave and go party. I mean, like, you know, common sense should tell you that that is probably, you know, not reality. Like something else is up there. And so, you know, I just bit the bullet. And so when we arrived, our first night was in Cartagena, and that was the first stop of our trip, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was so beautiful. The beaches, our first night there, we got there like late at night, and, you know, of course I'm on edge. I'm like, you know, is it even safe to take a taxi? But everything was super chill. Like, you know, we took an Uber. It was very cheap. That's one thing that I love about third world countries, is how cheap it is to just go anywhere. You can take an Uber from the airport to your Airbnb or whatever for probably $5 to $10. Everything is so cheap, and so I made the mistake of letting my friend book our trip. So, you know, he had us in this room where we didn't have hot water. It was an okay room. It was a little on the cheaper side, you know. I let him be in charge of booking the Airbnbs, the hotels and whatnot. That was my mistake. The part that we were in was in Getsemani, and it was very beautiful. And so we went out our first night. We just went exploring, and you know, people obviously can recognize that you're a foreigner, which leads me to my other point. I didn't really know much Spanish before coming to Colombia. I had 2 months of practice on Duolingo. I knew the basics. I knew how to say I want, I knew how to say I need, I like, all the basic simple sentences. You know, I learned how to say, you know, I knew how to say reservations, and, you know, or I want a table for 2, or, you know, to ask for basic food and stuff. I had the basics down, but outside of that, I didn't know anything else other than just very simple sentences. And so, the first thing that struck me is how friendly everybody was. Everybody was extremely friendly, extremely kind. You know, maybe that was just because we were tourists and we were in a touristy area, and they realized that it was like, you know, the best way in order to get us to buy from them or to interact with them. But to me, it seemed like it seemed more than that. It was just, they were just genuinely kind. They were just really kind. The food was very good. My first night I tried chicharron, which was my first experience having chicharron, and oh my God, so good, so good. Everything is super cheap. The meals are probably like at a inexpensive restaurant, it's probably like $5, like sometimes even under. Sometimes you're just getting food for literally $1 or $2. It's so cheap. And so we went out, we had, like, you know, a couple beers, we explored Getsemani a little bit. You know, everything is super historical, and there's this huge wall that like goes around the city. There's tons of statues and like really old buildings, and it's so beautiful and very cool, especially during the day. And so I loved it. One of the things I did not like about Cartagena was that it was very hot. It was very hot. Like, it reminded me of like almost like Florida. The climate was like Florida, but like even more so. It was like even more humid. Like I was thinking to myself, like, you know, this is the greatest experience. How am I 30 years old and I've never done this before? This is, there's something about like when you throw yourself into, another country and you don't speak the language. You're on your own. You don't have your family, or like you don't have a huge group of people. It's really just maybe you and a friend, and you just have to figure things out. And it's just something so thrilling about that. My friend described it as like every time we walked out the door, it was like we were loading into a GTA mission, and that to this day that is still so accurate. I thought that was so funny and just such an accurate description of how I felt every time we walked out that door from our hotel. Anything could happen. Like, for example, you walk out the front door and that guy that was following you around last night has been sleeping outside of the hotel waiting for you. And he wants to go around and hang out today, and you have to have like the spine to say like, no dude, like, just leave us alone, like it's just me and him today, like we're not, because they'll try and push you. And as we're walking around, there's tons of people like approaching you. They're trying to sell you stuff. Some of them are even a little pushy, and so this like helps build you up in order to get more comfortable rejecting people and saying no, like I'm good, like no thanks. You get in the beginning, it was a little harder. My friend would stop and he would talk to these people. So at first my friend had trouble like saying no to people. Like I would always have to be the one that would step in and be like, no bro, like leave us alone, like we're not interested. He would just he could not tell them no for nothing. Oh my gosh. And definitely he had a problem with the women. Yeah, for sure. At night, while you're out, you're having drinks, there are tons and tons and tons of women of the night that are trying to approach you, that are trying to, have conversation with you. And it's obvious what they want. And as soon as you tell them, I don't pay for women, it's not something I do, they're gonna dip. They're gonna leave you alone. Yeah, my friend, I'll never forget, he had this lady hanging on his arm that was like, she must have been 50 years old, and she was just, you could tell what she was doing just by what she was wearing. And she was, rubbing on his arm and saying, oh, you're so soft, oh, you got lotion on, oh, like you smell so good, like just trying so hard in order to get him to take her back to the hotel, or to pay for her services. And it was to the point like where she's like, give me your number, and I'm like, bro, like what kind of beer goggles do you have on right now, bro? Like this is dead, bro. This is horrible. Like, bro, she looked like something that had crawled out of the back of a semi. No, but she looked rough. And so I had to literally intervene and be like, bro, like, we're going back to the hotel. You're not bringing that lady back. Like, this is you as your friend. Like, I can't even let you do that. Like, this is, it's not a good idea. And no. And so, I had to dead that. She ended up getting his WhatsApp, and he still ended up messaging her when he got back to the hotel. And she was just as he was walking away, I'll never forget, she's just calling after him, Nikki baby, Nikki. just so cringe, bro. Just so cringe. And so, we ended up going out the next couple days, and I'm not gonna lie, bro. Let's keep it 100, bro. The one of the best parts about Colombia is the women. The women are beautiful, bro. And it's hard, especially if you're there, partying, or you're inebriated in the streets. And very attractive women are coming up to you, or very attractive women are talking to you while you're in the bar, And it's hard. Like you gotta stick to your guns, bro. Like, you know, me personally, I'm not somebody who would ever pay for a woman you know, it's one thing, you know, people say like, oh, it's the same thing, you know, you take them out to dinner and stuff, you know, you're paying for a woman regardless. But I personally don't believe that, you know, like it's my pride and ego. I would never do that. I find it disgusting. It's not me. It's not me. I would never do that. And especially knowing like what happens in those countries. Like everybody knows about the scopolamine, you know. If you don't know, it's a plant that grows naturally in Colombia, and these people take it, they grind it down into a powder, and they put it in your drink. They can put it in your food. They could even they call it devil's breath. They'll even blow it in your face, and it literally like turns you into a zombie. Like you're gonna wake up 2 days later and you're not gonna remember nothing. And it's not like people say like you're not gonna wake up with your organs missing. Like they're not. It's not to that level. People say that all the time. It's the silliest thing I've ever heard. Like they're not like they're just trying to rob you for whatever you got on you. Like your cell phone, your laptop. They're gonna run your cards dry. They're gonna run everything through the mud with your wallet. Everything that they can get. But you know, so I'm personally not interested in that, and I knew that coming into Colombia that was not something I was going to do. But you know, with that being said, like there are very many beautiful women that are there that are not prostitutes, you know, just working normal jobs. Like it's so easy just to go to a supermarket, go to a store, and just see a girl that's, you know, on the corner or working at the store that's just a, you know, 8, 9, or a 10, bro. Like. And I'm not gonna lie, like, you know, I seen a couple, and I had to spit some game, try to shoot my shot at a few of them. And you know, there was this one girl that I really, you know, kind of connected with, that I thought like, you know, it's could be something. Her name was Valentina. She was selling little vacation packages on the side of the road, and you know, I walk up and ask her, you know, where's the best place to get some drinks around here with me and my friend. And she, you know, she walked me down to the place. And you know, as she was going, I was like, you know, like asking her like about herself, like, you know, where she was from, you know, how old she was, what was her name. And you know, so I kind of hesitated to like get her number. And you know, me and my friend got to the bar, and she kind of just headed back to her job. And I was like, dang, like why didn't I get her number? That was so stupid. And so then, like, as I was leaving, you know, I seen her again. Like she was on the corner still, you know, trying to sell these vacation packages. And she asked me, you know, how was the bar? How were the drinks? And you know, I told her it was good, you know, but like, you know, I'm trying to get to know you. And so she gave me her WhatsApp, and she's like, oh, like, you know, would you be interested in going on this vacation? And so me and my friend are kind of like, you know, maybe, like, I don't know, shit, what is this about? And so she started spitting her game, you know, because she's obviously getting commission, she's getting paid off of this. And so she's trying to sell us this vacation package. And I was like, look, I want to be straight up, I'm not going unless you're going. If you're going on the trip, then yeah, you know, maybe we'll go, you know, if it's not too much. Like, cause they have like these islands that are off the coast of Cartagena that they'll take you to, and they're beautiful islands. You know, it's a little party setup. You know, it looked cool. I'm not gonna front. It looked cool. So we exchanged information. You know, I ended up texting her later like, yo, really, we're not trying to go on that. Like, you know, if you're down to hang out, like, you know, let me know. Like, we'll do some shit. But we're not gonna pay $500 to go 5 minutes off the coast and go on a boat. Like, it's just not gonna happen. So anyway, we end up like hanging out a lot. You know, I ended up like, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of caught some feelings for her. It was she was very cute. She was Venezuelan. So we had started talking a little bit, and we started hanging out, you know, going out for food, going out for drinks. So we had started meeting up like for food and drinks, and you know, I'm not gonna lie, like I kind of started to to catch some feelings. I was thinking she just seemed like a really sweet person. You know, we even went to church on Sunday. It was just good vibes. You know, my friend, you know, she brought her friend. Me and my friend was just, you know, hanging out with them, going to like some little rooftop spots. Like, we was just having a great time. And then, like, you know, the time came for me to leave, and you know, she was telling me like, oh, I don't want you to go. Like, I really wish that you could stay here longer. You know, we could spend more time together. And you know, I should have known something was up. Because she'll go to her spot at night, and then her service would just go off. My message wasn't getting delivered. You know, like, she wouldn't hit me up after she got home. Like, she would maybe say she got home, and then that would just be, she would say goodnight, that would be it. None of my messages would deliver. It was a little sus. And so I started to think, like, you know, something's up. She has a child, but she told me that the father of her child had left, that he was living in the United States. And so, you know, I was a little naive. You know, I kind of wanted to take her word for it at face value. You know, I didn't want to assume that she was a liar. And so, you know, she ended up like convincing us to stay a little longer, and I extended my stay there. What a mistake. You know, so me and my friend ended up hanging out with her for a couple more days. I actually ended up like shortening my trip to Medellin because of that, which was a mistake in and of itself. I should never have done that. I should have stuck to my plans, you know, the plans that we had. You know, my friend, he was cool with it. He was down to do whatever. And so you know, it was the flights were so cheap. It was like $80, $90 for our flight to Cartagena to Medellin. And so it was so cheap that we were both just like, you know, we're enjoying vibing with these two girls. Like, why not stay like a couple extra days? We really liked Cartagena, you know. We didn't have any experience as to what the other cities were like, so, you know. But then, so we ended up leaving out a couple days later. You know, she's telling me like, oh, it's not goodbye, it's just see you later. You know, all this cheesy shit, bro. All this nonsense. And I'm like, dang, like, I could really see myself like dating this girl. Like, she's very, very cute. You know, huge lips, thick Spanish accent, doesn't speak no English. You know, I'm not gonna lie, half the time we was communicating through the translator app, like, but she seemed like good people. And so we ended up going to Medellin, and you know, I'm not gonna lie, that's where I kind of fell in love. When we went to Medellin, the climate was perfect. It was so cool. The city was just beautiful, bro. It's like a city. Picture a town. No, not even a town. Picture a city sitting in the middle of mountains, surrounded on all sides. Like, and it's just at nighttime, it's so beautiful. And even during the day, like, you just look up and there's just mountains all surrounding you, bro. And it's like, you know, like, man, I felt like this is so surreal. Like, this is like, how am I here right now? How did I was just in Florida a couple days ago. Like, how am I here right now, bro? And most importantly, like, I didn't want to go back, bro. I didn't want to go back to my job, to the life that I was living before. You know, everybody says that, like, they go on vacations and they're like, this is it. You know, this is, I'm gonna live here. But I wanted to actually like put it into motion. Like, I really wanted to live there. And I didn't care the cost. I didn't care like what I had to do in order to get there. Like, I was like determined. Like, you know, I was telling my friend, I was like, bro, like, move out here with me. Like, I was trying to get him to dump his girlfriend, like, leave everything behind, all his plans. His family was in New York. You know, obviously my family's in Florida. So I didn't care. I was ready, you know. And so I ended up like, you know, just having the best time. Medellin was beautiful. The place that we were at was so shitty, bro. So shitty. The Airbnb was not that great. It looked great in the photos, but like when we got there, it was a little iffy. But anyway, like the restaurants was so nice. The food was so cheap. You know, it was different than Cartagena. Cartagena is like way more touristy, in my opinion. It's way more touristy. At least from what I could see, there was much more like prostitution going on in Cartagena than there was in Medellin. I didn't really see any of that in Medellin, you know. Just women were beautiful. The people were so nice. Like I just couldn't picture going back to my life and just not, you know, not living here. Like something about it just stuck with me. I felt more at home there. I felt more at home in Medellin, you know, where I spoke bare minimum Spanish with just my friend, and you know, no friends, and not knowing anybody than I felt in my entire time in Florida. And bro, like something just like sat with me that, like, you know, I'm gonna live here. Like I'm gonna do it. And so, you know, that last day that we left, we went back. I had this sadness, bro, in me that, like, you know, this is it. This is the end. Like, you know, I'm going home. Like, this is how is this happening? Like how did the whole week trip go by like that? And I wasn't ready for it to end. Like you know, I'm not gonna lie, we met two girls there. They were trying to convince us to stay. They were trying to convince us to extend our trip. There were some girls that he had been talking to on Facebook. You know, it was a girl and her friend that we had met up with, and they were cool people, and they were trying to get us to just extend our trip again. And I was like, nah, bro, like I can't. Like I have to go back. I have to work. Like my job's expecting me. Like I can't just do that. And so anyway, I ended up flying back home. I think the trip total was like a week, maybe a week and 2 days. And yeah, when I got back home, man, I could not stop thinking about Medellin. I could not stop thinking about Colombia. It was all I thought about. I ate, slept, breathed, you know, dreamt Colombia. I was watching videos. Like I was just, all I could think about was going back, man. And so the longer I thought about it, you know, I was, you know, why not? Why not give it a shot? Like, and so I did. I put my house up for rent. I cleaned out my house. Everything. Like I sold everything that I had, basically, that I wasn't gonna need. I put my house up for rent. I told my job, like, look, I'm really not happy here. Like I realized in Colombia that, like, I feel much more at home there, and you know, I'm 30 years old. Like this is the experience of a lifetime. Like I'm never gonna be able to do this again. Like when I get older and if I have kids, like, so why not? And so I left. You know, like an idiot, I continued to talk to that girl, Valentina. Continued to, you know, we talked, and you know, we got to a point where we were almost kind of like, we weren't in a relationship. She was never my girlfriend, but like we were very close. You know, she was like ready. She was ready for me to come there. I'm not gonna lie, she's part of the reason that I went there so soon, is because, you know, you know, I didn't want her to move on and find somebody else. So I kind of like sped run the whole like quitting my job and moving scenario, and I was probably gone. And okay, I came back at the beginning of September, left about the end of October, about October 20th. And so funny story, I ended up getting to Colombia. You know, she actually said that she wanted to, I said I wanted to live in Medellin. Like I didn't want to be there in Cartagena. Like it was just too hot. Like for me, it was Medellin. And so she, you know, she offers to go with me. I helped pay for her flight to go to Medellin like an idiot. You know, she sends her daughter to go live with her dad, who was in Chile at the time. And yeah, she flies to Medellin. She waits there for me. She stays with her like her ex sister-in-law. And I get to Medellin. I'm so happy. She meets me at the airport. Like, I'm like, this is like surreal. It didn't hit me until like I got there that like I really just quit my job. I really just upped and left everything on a whim to go to this developing country, to go to Colombia on, for what? I did have the luxury of having, a source of income. I had my house that was up for rent. It still was not rented out. So I still didn't have any money. I just had a little bit in savings. And, I was just hoping for the best. But I was trying in the process of renting my house out. So my mom was helping me with that. She was, showing people the house while I was gone. And, so I had this idea that like at the end of the day, like I'll still have like some income. And I started a business to like, route my funds through, to collect the rent money, to pay myself. And I thought, I could apply for the digital nomad visa. Like, that's what I'm gonna do. Like, I'll just rent my property. I'll collect the money, $2,500. I calculated my expenses. Like, that's more than enough. I'll be straight. And man, was I naive. Not on the expenses part, but just that I, was gonna go live happily ever after with this girl that I met in Cartagena that I knew basically nothing about. Like I thought I knew her. I didn't know her. So we get to Medellin. We were staying in hotels. She was so happy. We were kissing on each other. Like everything was great, man. Everything was great. I was feeling like, nothing could stop me, bro. Nothing. Like I did this. Like this is living. Like, like that feeling was just surreal. It was surreal. And so, we're together every single day. She's staying with me in the hotel. About 2 or 3 days go by. We're drinking. We're having some drinks with her ex, sister-in-law. Because she had introduced me, and we had been hanging out with them because she was close. That was the only person she really knew in Medellin. And so we're drinking one night, and we go get some food at this stand. And she's like, I'm like, yo, I want this hot dog thing. It was really just like a hot dog in the middle of like some bread. And she's like, nah, don't eat that. Nah, don't get that. And I'm like, yo, like I'm hungry. Like that's what I want. And so she's like, no, like not here. And I was just like, okay. And so when we stepped away, I was like, yo, that was a little rude, So she just blew up, bro. Just that real side of her came out. That side I had not seen yet. That side that everybody dreads running into. I saw a completely different side of her immediately. She's yelling at me like, I'll leave right now. She's telling me in Spanish. I'm like, do what you gotta do. Like, if you wanna leave. I'm not keeping you. And so she stormed off. She leave me. I'm sitting there at the table fucking 1 o'clock in the morning by myself, looking so stupid. All the people are looking at me like, what just happened? So about 5 minutes later, here she comes storming back. She sit down, she's crying, just tears streaming down her face. And I'm like, look, you need to calm down. And she's like, no, like take me back to the hotel. Take me back to the hotel right now. Mind you, we're literally like 2 minutes away from the hotel. You could literally just walk down the road and there it is. And so I'm like, no, like stop. I'm not doing anything right now. You need to calm down. So anyway, she end up storming away again. She take the key card. She stormed back to the place, and I just sit there like, this is what I get. I should have known better. I shouldn't have been so naive to think that this was, that I really knew this girl this well. As that I really knew this girl as much as I thought I did. Like, this was stupid, and I'm just laughing to myself. Like, this is so. I end up going back to the hotel. She's standing out front. She's sitting there smoking a cigarette. Bro, boys, she smokes cigarettes. That's 100 red flags. I hated that, to be honest, but you overlook stuff. When you really like somebody, you overlook things. And so we go in the hotel. She's like storming behind me. She's like, talk to me. And so we get in there. She started yelling at me. We're in a room. She's telling me, like, all I care about is my money. All I care about is superficial things, and that I'm just this terrible person. And mind you, I'm just like, where did this come from? Like, we had no issues up until now. Like, we were good. Like, everything was great before that. We had no problems. And so I'm just like, all right, like, I see how it is. And it's obviously you're drunk. Like, we can't even talk about this right now. Like, let's just go to sleep. We'll talk in the morning. And so we went to sleep. I wake up. She's trying to cuddle me. Like, I'm just letting it happen, whatever, at this point. And so in the morning, she's like, can we talk? And I'm like, yeah, we need to talk. And then she's like, oh, like, do you still want to do this? And I'm like, I'm willing to forgive you. I'm not gonna lie. I'm willing to forgive you, and, like, we can work on stuff. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm not gonna put up with that again. And she tell me, well, I don't know if I still want to do this. And I said, okay, then see ya. Like, bye. So I take my stuff, I hop in the shower. She leaves. She took all her stuff, she leaves. So here go her dad texting me. Her dad's saying, oh, like, what happened? Valentina just told me that, you guys split up. Like, she's really upset. Like, what happened? But I told him, I was like, straight up, like, we got into an argument. She had a little bit too much to drink. I felt like she was just being a little rude. And, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. We woke up the next morning. I thought we could talk about it. Obviously, she felt like she didn't want to still do this anymore. So, that's it. Anyway, he told her immediately. She blew up again, just texting me all this crazy stuff. You're such a little man to go and tell my dad all this stuff. Like, oh, wow, what a piece of shit you turned out to be. Like, and then just blocked me immediately, so I can't say nothing. So picture this. Here I am in the middle of Medellin, in a country I don't know, with the only person that I really had, to help me get around, to help me when, I can't speak Spanish fluently, to the only person that I really knew here in Colombia, and she just left. Now we're not talking, and I'm just by myself. And it was at that moment I knew, like, this is it. Like, this is what you asked for. This is what you wanted. You wanted this adventure. You wanted this challenge. You wanted to really be in another country. You're here now, bro. You ain't got nobody. This is what you signed up for. Now own it. And so I did. I found a room real quick, because that hotel I was staying in that I let her book was just horrible, bro. It was super cheap. It was probably literally like less than $20 a night, and it was so tiny. We were both just rough sleeping conditions, bro. Like, on that little double mattress. It was not fun, bro. So I find a room. It was probably like $200, $250 a month. All bills included. I went, the man showed me the room. It's like a kind of like a shared living situation where you are sharing the kitchens. You're sharing the kitchen, you're sharing the bathroom, you're sharing like the living space, like the living area, like, with other people. And, I was like, dang, I've never done anything like this before. And so For the first couple of days, like I just kept to myself. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little upset, you know. I kept thinking like maybe, maybe we'll talk, maybe we'll work things out. I should have known better than that. She's not. I didn't even want to work things out after the first couple of days, just because I realized like this is the type of person she is. She's unstable. This is not anyone who's ever gonna make a good partner. It's not anyone I'm ever gonna be able to trust, that I'm ever gonna be able to, have a reasonable discussion with or argument. This is disaster. And so it was at that point, like, I started coming out, I started socializing with my roommates. They were cool guys, man. They were cool guys. I made some friends. And it was just, it was an awesome experience. And I did that for the next, 6 months while I applied for my visa over and over and over again. So every time that I would apply for my visa, they would just keep rejecting it. They would just keep saying that, oh, you need to do this differently. Oh, like we need to see like this about your business. Like I guess like the digital nomad visa really didn't apply as much to my situation as I wanted it to, or they were just being stingy. There was even a meeting where they asked me to go to the capital of Bogota and like to interview with them in person. And I did. I went there because they said that on my record, like it showed that I had been arrested before. So I had to explain like what happened with that, like why, which, I'll talk about that at a different time maybe. But I had to explain what happened, how the charges got dropped, exactly what I did, everything. And so they were cool with it. They looked past it. I felt like this is great. I'm going to get the visa. I went back home, they denied it again. And so, I just started looking at it like, I don't know what to do at this point. Like I ran out of days. Now I have to go to, I have to leave the country and re-enter, because you can only have 6 months in a row. You can only have 6 months in a row living in Colombia without a visa. And it's really just 3 months, and then you can apply for an extension. And that's what I did. I applied for an extension. So after my 6 months, I still hadn't been approved for my visa. So my lawyer advised me, just leave the country, go to another country close by, stay for a little bit, or just even stay for a week if you want to, and then you can re-enter, because it's now after December. So I have more days, so it's every calendar year that you get 6 months or 90 days, and then you can file an extension for another 90 days. And so I went to Peru, I went to Lima, and that was awesome. I had a great time here. I met some cool people. I had a great experience here. It was completely different than Colombia, huge city. And I realized I really do love like a really big city. And I stayed in a really nice apartment. Actually, the same exact apartment that I'm currently in is the same one that I stayed in back in April. And I loved Lima. Don't get me wrong, Lima was great, but it wasn't Colombia, Like the people in Colombia are just so much more welcoming. They're so much more kind. I can't lie, guys. The women are so much more beautiful in Colombia. A lot of people say that the food here is a lot better, and I'll agree with that. The food here is really good in Lima, very, very good in Peru. And so as it stands, I'm still in the process of trying to get my visa. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have more days until January. I'm currently, debating going back to maybe sell my house and buy a property in Colombia, because my lawyers advised me that, that would be a better way in order to live there, is to make it, is you can get an investment visa for opening a business or buying a property there. So I would need to invest a certain amount. It's kind of expensive. In order to do that, I would need to sell my house back in the United States, which is sad because I don't want to. It's a piece of it's a piece of me. It has a very special place in my heart, and I do love that house. But at the same time, like something just doesn't feel right. I feel like a part of me is still in Colombia, that like I still really want to live there, and I miss it so much every day. I miss the friends that I made there. I miss the people that I met. I miss the restaurants. I miss the food. I just miss the atmosphere. I miss the vibe. Bro, it was so beautiful. And God willing, I will be able to return there. But as of right now, I'm just waiting, and I'm looking to God for guidance as to what the next steps in my life are. And if I feel like He wants me to go back to the United States, I feel like I could do that. But I really hope that it's in His plans, in order for me to live in Colombia, because I feel like there is a part of me, a part of my heart that will always be in Colombia. And so, yeah, that's it. That's my story. Obviously, there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more that I left out, some things that I didn't cover as much, and, maybe I'll talk about those in another video. But, it was a great experience, and I wouldn't change it for anything. And I really, really hope that this next year that I will be able to return to Colombia and to start a business, or work online and do something in the United States in order to support myself there. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I would absolutely recommend everybody leave the country. Like if you're 20s or 30s and you've never left the country, you've never experienced anything outside, just know that like there is so much better out there. Not only that, like the women are so much better. They're so much more feminine. They're so much kinder. I always thought that I wanted a woman who was like a traditional woman. I love traditional women. And although Colombian women are not the most traditional, they are more traditional than American women. And it is just such a refreshing feeling to go out with a Colombian woman, and just the way that they like hang on your arm, and that they like the way that they treat you. They make you feel like a man. And it's just so much different. It's just so much different than American women. And if you've never experienced that, I highly, highly recommend it. And it doesn't even have to be Colombia, but just travel. Just get out there. Just experience another culture. See what the women and what the people are like in other cultures, because it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And you don't realize what you're missing out on until you go, until you try it. I'm telling you. Like it's a whole nother world out there. It's not like they make it seem. The United States makes it seem like that every other place is so dangerous, that people online make it seem like you're gonna get murdered, and you're gonna get you're gonna wake up missing your kidneys, and it's nothing like that, man. If you don't go looking, if you're constantly paying attention, you're on your guard, you're not doing things that you shouldn't, you're not looking for prostitutes, you're not trying to buy drugs off of people on the street, you're not going to have problems. You're not. Obviously, there is always going to be outliers. There's always going to be the possibility that something can happen. There's a possibility that something can happen to you walking outside your house in the United States. There's always going to be that possibility. And I just wanted to say to you guys that there's a whole nother world out there, and it's so beautiful. Don't confine yourself to the United States and think that that's all that there is. Other countries are so beautiful. They have so much to offer. The cultures are amazing. The food, man, you guys, you don't know what you're missing until you go outside of the United States. And I am so happy that I did. And although I've only seen 2 other countries, Peru and Colombia, I am so thankful to God, and I'm so thankful that I ventured outside of my comfort zone to try something new. It was such a great experience, and it's forever changed me. Living here and being by myself in this country, is something I never thought I could do. You know, I thought that I needed somebody to come do it with me. I needed a friend. I needed family to come with me. Everybody has their own lives, and you only have one life. So don't sit there and live in fear of what could or what might happen. Get out there and try it. Get out there and just do it. Like, take a risk. Like, you know, like, experience another culture. There's a part of me that I had to discover in living by myself, in being alone, in being put in these circumstances every day where, you know, I don't speak the language, I don't know how to overcome this obstacle, but I'm gonna do it anyway. It's been such a great experience, and thank you guys for listening. God bless you all, and yeah, get out there and try it. I would highly, highly recommend it.